Welcome back, everyone, to Mackers Inc. Live, episode number 70. And this episode is brought to you by Dieter's Funeral Home and Pizzeria, where we handle your final arrangements and your final slice. Because even in the afterlife, nobody wants to go hungry. Are you tired of boring funerals where the only thing served is regret and stale coffee? Well, at Dieter's, we combine heartfelt goodbyes with hand-tossed hellos. Choose from our signature Eternal Rest deep dish loaded with extra cheese to keep the departed feeling extra gooey, or the Last Call calzone, stuffed with all the toppings you never got to try in life. Our staff will embalm your loved one while baking your order so that everything arrives hot and well preserved. Plus, every slice includes a complimentary condolences pepperoni heart-shaped pie, because nothing says I'm sorry for your loss like a slice that says I'm here for you and carbs. Dieter's Funeral Home and Pizzeria, our deep dish is to die for. Use code BRAD for a free upgrade to extra large, because why send them off small when you can go out in style? Rest in pizza. I got to try that place out sometime. I bet it's pretty good.
Honestly, that may be the greatest ad read in the history of podcasts. And
it was.
That seems like legitimately like a radio ad you would have heard in the late 80s.
I haven't. What do you think of this one? I won't read the full thing, but I had another one locked and loaded, just depending on what my mood was. But the other one was going to be Dieter's Tax Preparation and Pizzeria. So
I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna set money aside for my funeral, so it's like the biggest party anybody's
like clowns.
Also, why are you like 2/3 of the screen and I'm 1/3 of the screen? Is it because your head's so big, or like what are we doing?
That's a good question. That is kind of weird. Let's see if I can adjust something here. Layout. How's this look? Yeah, that's a little bit better. I don't know how that got messed up. I didn't read that other one so that I had a little more time to ask you a couple questions before we get started, because I have a few questions that I'm curious about that are a little bit more related to you personally. Okay, so I'm going to ask you some questions. They're not off the wall. They're relatively serious, but here's what I'm curious about. The first question is, if you weren't in nutrition science, what other field of science do you think you'd be drawn to? Or a better way to phrase it would be, let's say you had to go back in time and you can't go to school for what you went to school for. You got to pick some other science. What science would you have been drawn to? What kind of career? Oh, you're muted.
Rookie move. I was just preparing myself because the dogs are coming in the house from getting groomed, so it's going to be chaos here in a second. It would be infectious disease or diagnostic medicine.
What if you couldn't go into any sort of like healthcare related field?
I would have gone into shock physics, because that's basically you just build missiles, bombs, guns, things like that. Which is pretty cool.
Is that a real answer though? You really would have? Like that would interest you? I've never heard the term shock physics.
Somebody's like, "Oh, what do you do for work?" You're like, "Oh, I'm a shock physicist." And they're like, "What does that mean?" It's like,
yeah,
I figure out how things go boom.
I've never heard of that term. That's cool though.
It's like,
okay.
There's people who just build like rockets. Like,
I was going to say, does rocketry interest you? Like rocket science?
The thing is, I'd have to be an engineer. Like rocket science, here's the thing. When people say rocket science is like really hard, rocket science itself is really just basically differential calculus. Like that's really it's the applied.
It's a lot of math.
It's the engineering that's really hard. Yeah.
Does engineering not particularly interest you?
No.
Okay. What's one habit you know improves your health, but you struggle to do it consistently?
Cardio.
Okay.
If mine's not flossing. Basketball, I really. Oh, see, I floss my teeth all the time.
Do you? I'm not. I could do a better job at flossing. What's the most interesting or unexpected thing you've learned about human behavior through either coaching or just biology?
Preference falsification.
Okay, expand on that.
People will often tell you what they prefer and lie about it for social status and to keep face rather than tell you the truth. Now, I know that sounds like duh. But what was really interesting is, this is not about politics, but a good example of this is, do you remember was it 2016 election when it was Trump versus Clinton?
Versus
and all the
Hillary,
exit polls were saying something, and then the actual votes came in differently.
Oh yeah.
It's a great example of like preference falsification.
Okay.
Right. We see this a lot in coaching too. Like people will say, "Oh, I like to do X, Y, and Z," and then you see in their like behavior logs, you're like, "No, they don't."
Okay, a couple more for you. Outside of work, what topic do you go down internet rabbit holes on that would surprise people, or maybe not surprise people?
Ancient civilization conspiracy theories.
I do love that one. What do you think is the most like? So out of the rabbit holes you've gone down, what are you like? This one seems like it could be the most plausible.
The most plausible. There was a relatively advanced civilization 10,000+ years ago.
Yeah, I think you've mentioned that to me before. Maybe, and when you say advanced, like when you say advanced, you probably don't necessarily mean advanced, like have the same stuff that we do, but just like different versions of.
They had advanced mathematics, advanced culture, advanced understanding of engineering, physics. They maybe have not had electricity and computers and things like that, but I think they had a very advanced understanding of the world.
I mean, there is definitely evidence that suggests that. Just two more. If you could design a study to answer any question about anything you want to know, what would it be?
Are we alone in the universe?
Great answer. So do you think we are?
No.
If you look at the
there's aliens living among us. I mean, Dylan, you're here, so ipso facto.
It's not as many. If you look up what's using the Fermi paradox, right? There's mathematical equations they've used to determine like how many alien species are out there. And if you look in if you do the math, just have AI do it to find out what it would be for the Milky Way alone. It's only like the best estimate would be like maybe 20 to 30, if that, in the Milky Way, and maybe not even that in terms of like intelligent life in the Milky Way. So it's really not.
You do realize 20 or 30 in a single galaxy when there's billions of galaxies means there's probably a lot of life out there.
No, I know, but I'm saying like you would think with just given the size of the universe that there would be a lot more than that, and the age too. Like it just seems like it would, if there's going to be intelligent life, that it would be more than that. But maybe it's so incredibly rare that it's even less than that. Last question. When you think about where health advice is heading in the next 10 to 20 years, is there anything that excites you, and is there anything that worries you?
I can tell you what worries me.
Okay.
With every advance in healthcare and medicine, we get further away from health agency. Like autonomy. Every layer of healthcare we add in, from what I can tell, is we are removing the person from it. We start to blame
other things,
environment, genetics, biology, and we continue to add systems that pull agency away. And my concern is not that there's not things that are really helpful for people, but we put into people's minds that most of their solutions are external, and that if they don't have access to those solutions, they don't have options.
So your concern is keep going.
And I think the more we remove agency from people, the worse it gets.
So you feel like we're headed down a direction where we're taking just less and less responsibility for ourselves, and
I don't think that's the right word.
So that's why you're saying agency.
Agency. Okay. I think we are telling people a narrative that's removing their agency.
Okay. I could see that too. That, you know what? Before we move on, I'm going to write that down because that would be a really good episode topic. So, look at that. That's a good.
My dogs just got home from the groomers and they're wearing Christmas colored neckties. I have no idea. Living in my house is a wild experience. Let me just tell you that.
Well,
all right, let's get into the show. We wasted 10 minutes and 42 seconds.
I don't think it was wasted. It felt pretty productive. But so this one's about aging and longevity. And hopefully by the end of this, we will all have learned how to live to 100 easily. No, I'm just kidding. Of course, the point of the topic is discussing why agency and longevity are, well, obviously important, but they're kind of becoming, I don't know, focused on more, I guess, for lack of a better word. They seem to be, popping up on social media, and there's different supplements coming out to, there's celebrities talking about it. There's all these, this biohacking and stuff. So we felt like it'd be a good opportunity to cut through that noise and there is a lot of validity to it, and there's some quackery too. So I think we can kind of dissect both of those things. So when we talk about longevity, Brad, I mean, we're not talking about obviously living forever. When we talk about longevity, we're talking about just staying, being able to do the things that we do now, keeping your independence. It obviously becomes
living
very
better
important.
Longer.
Yeah. And yes, right. So, we can talk about what's going to move that needle and what isn't, but, aging is, how would you define aging, right? I think it sounds obvious. Like it's the decline in your physiological function over time, and the way you look and the way you act and the way you move. But, there is also a process behind aging too, right? So why don't we just start with defining aging and longevity?
There's a lot of ways to define aging. Part of it is driven by how you think about it and how you bucket the concepts of aging. There's obviously the chronological bucket, time. Then there is what I call the physics bucket, entropy. And then there is the bucket, I don't know if I have a good name for it, but it is the quality of the repair systems you have.
Okay.
As humans, aging is a biological phenomenon of the result of all of those things happening. When we are born, our body has a program it has to run to grow our physical body, mature it so it can sexually reproduce, and then to just maintain it. That program ends up breaking down over time. You can think about it like code in a computer, where over time you just get code rot. Like new systems come online and it's just not functioning as well. And your body's the same. So we have, as you accumulate time, you also accumulate like biological damage.
Wear.
From it's basically wear, right? You have exposure to oxygen, you have exposure to UV, you have exposure to toxins, you have exposure to gravity, like everything. And your body has these systems that repair. And over time, those repair systems get less and less effective. And so you start to accumulate damage. Think about it like you have a house. And, as your siding starts to fail, you replace your siding. As the caulk around your window starts to crack, you replace it. And like you can keep up with it, but over time, it just accumulates. And eventually it breaks down. And that's what aging is. How that compares to longevity is how quickly we age affects longevity. Right? The faster we age, the less our longevity is. And it's really important to understand what it is about our bodies that dictate how well we age and how long we live and how much we have the ability to live better longer.
Yeah, and there's a difference too when we talk about longevity, we talk about lifespan. Let's talk about health span too, because that's a big difference, right? Lifespan is the number of years you've actually lived, Health span is how many of those years did you actually live in good health, and how much of that time were you able to be functional and do the things you enjoy and live like
Yeah.
a quote unquote normal human being like you would want to, right? You can increase your lifespan and not necessarily have a lengthy, a long health span or a good health span. So maybe just expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, I want to see if I can find this graph that I made a long time ago. This is my big beef on Facebook. I can't go back and search my own profile for keywords.
Yeah, you can. Well, you can sort by posted by you though. If you try that.
Yeah, you know how many times I've posted. Here's the way to think about lifespan and health span. Imagine you have a graph. Everybody always makes fun of me because I just make things in very simple pictures, but I have my wife likes to joke and call me a smooth brain sometimes when I do stupid things. So, but imagine the x-axis is time.
Save an example for one of the stupid things you've done for the end of this episode. Just put a pin in that. Go ahead.
X-axis is time. Y-axis is quality of life. Your lifespan is just the x-axis. It's how many years you're on this planet. Mm-hmm. Right? Your health span is the quality of life, like the area under the curve of quality of life as you age. Now, you can live to 100 in a wheelchair, or that guy who had polio and who lived in an iron lung for like 40 years, right? He had a decent lifespan, but what was his true health span? What was he able to do for long periods of time?
Right.
Not much. So your health span is really, what is the total area under the curve you have of your whole life? Like, here you go. This is what I'm talking about. This is related to something else that I did, but why can I not share this? So it's related to like fasting and quality of life or whatever, but like length of life, quality of life, and your health span is the area under the curve. And your goal really with health span is to maximize the area under the curve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we'll get into like how you can do some of those things, because obviously we know that there are good practices for how to do that. So we'll dive into that in a little bit. But I did want to just kind of, summarize and kind of recap what you had mentioned. I mean, why we age is because of, it's a little bit of genetic programming that humans just aren't, nothing lasts forever. Obviously, humans are no exception to that. Environmental stress. So that could be the way you eat or exercise or sleep. You mentioned, toxins. You mentioned, I thought the UV rays was a pretty good one because that's something you don't really think about. Oxygen is also something that, it's funny when you actually think about what oxygen does, like, and how it like corrodes things. Yeah, it really is. But that's just something you don't think about. But I thought it was interesting too that you mentioned a decline in your body's ability to repair its cells, right? A decline in cellular repair mechanisms over time. And I wanted to bring that up specifically because it seems to me like we are maybe this is not correct, but it seems like we're making some progress in how to increase our body's ability to do that. Now, maybe that's just, and we can, like I said, we can get into this. Maybe that is just, you got to eat better and you got to exercise, and you got to maintain a good body weight. That's a lot of it. But is there an actual science to, if there's one area where you could like scientifically engineer, or whatever word you want to use, scientifically make people live longer, would it have something to do with cellular intervention? Or do you think that's just too scientifically complicated to actually do anything meaningful?
Yes.
Okay.
And here's where I think the most important concept to kind of walk people through. There is a fairly famous fitness YouTuber who, his concept of, hey, I'm going to live forever, or I'm going to live a long time, is basically, there's all these things we know that are beneficial about maintaining a good body weight, exercise, etc. And here's all the like molecular mechanisms of how it work, right? Like here's all the peptides and signaling molecules and etc. And I'm going to take a whole bunch of pills to mimic those. That's the thought process. It's sort of, imagine this. We know testosterone is good for you, so let's just take testosterone, like exogenous testosterone. We know maintaining a good body weight is good for you, and one of the hardest things in the modern environment is appetite regulation, so I'm going to take a GLP-1 forever. Mm-hmm. We know that activation of AMPK in your cells is really good for cellular health, so I'm going to take metformin. We know that NADH is important, so I'm going to take, an NADH supplement. We know that activating your antioxidant system is really good, so I'm going to take this NRF2 activator. So it's like this panel of things you can do, and those will all help like your repair systems, etc. Now, we also know that you can exercise, and it does all of those things. And we know that there's a lot of things that exercise activates that we don't know about. And there's also a little bit of the cumulative result of all of those things, plus the stimulus itself of exercise, is much different than taking all of these supplements. So all the genetic engineering possible may not actually be as effective as engaging in regular strenuous exercise. Mm-hmm. So if we actually look at modeling how do you live forever, is all of those sci-fi advanced things are going to be a part of the aging protocol, but they're going to have to be later in life when you can't do the physical exercise to the degree you could before. I think replacing it at a young age is probably missing a lot of the benefits. And this comes down to, a whole lot of things. We know that the things that really drive cellular damage and aging are an imbalance between reactive oxygen species and your antioxidant system, DNA damage from UV, tissue damage from inflammation, like fibrosis, things like that, mm-hmm. and damage in DNA repair mechanisms themselves. Well, we know that exercise helps bolster your natural antioxidant system. We know that exercise activates the enzymes that keep your telomeres long. We know that exercise improves your DNA repair capacity. We know that exercising really helps you balance pro-inflammatory and anti-inflammatory processes. We know that it increases energy flux and improves the efficiency of your mitochondria. Like, we know all of these things. And so the actual fountain of youth is, how do you continue to stress your cells so that they naturally maintain their repair mechanisms? That is, for all intents and purposes, that is the key to longevity, right? So it's not actually about the removal of stress, right? It's not like living in a bubble, let's remove all these things. It's how do I actually augment the biological systems I have to maintain what I have for as long as I can.
So all of those things that you mentioned, and you about exercise and what it does, I think it probably doesn't take as long as you might think for those changes to happen too, right? I think 3 to 6 months, you probably would those health markers, or however you want to quantify them, all those things that you mentioned, in 3 to 6 months will have probably changed pretty dramatically if you're consistent with it, right? So I think that can happen sooner than people believe. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
So it's really not that far out of reach if you're like, hey, I'm gonna change my life and get healthier and increase my longevity and my health span by exercising regularly. Everything that you just mentioned will take place probably quicker than you had mentioned, or excuse me, than you would think. A couple other things I want to mention, because I think they're worth mentioning, is as far as things that happen to us when we age, as we age. We know, so we've talked about cell turnover, less efficient DNA repair. Inflammation can increase. You have reduced mitochondrial efficiency. But then you've also got, and we've talked about these other things many times before, sarcopenia, right? Bone density loss. Your insulin sensitivity goes down. You have hormonal changes. You take longer to recover. There's changes in appetite, changes in your digestion, nutrient absorption. Like we don't absorb nutrients as well the older we get too, right? So like there's a lot going on there.
What was I watching the other day? Oh, I was watching a documentary, and it was showing like videos of people in the 90s and then like cutting to interviews with them today. And I was just thinking, man, aging really sucks.
My dad always growing up would be like, dude, I'm telling you, getting old sucks. I never believed him, but turns out it's probably
and what's
true.
been really interesting is over the last couple of years, the more I've been just kind of experiencing it and the more I've been reading about it, how important it is to try to maintain as many of your body systems as you can when you're young.
Right.
And young is like up until you're 60, right?
Yeah.
In your 30s, 40s, 50s, if you can build substantial capacity in your body, your later decades of life are going to be so substantially better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Than you can even fathom.
Well, let's dive into that real quick, because the things that I mentioned plus what you just mentioned. So talking about sarcopenia, so muscle loss, and a decrease in bone density and insulin sensitivity, those things can be improved through what? Well, like what specifically?
I mean, it's mostly, it's resistance training, it's movement, it's exercise, it's environmental exposure, it's activating your brain, it's building healthy relationships, it's all of those things.
So I think as you're talking about, what do I do in my 30s and 40s and 50s so that my 60s, 70s, 80s, and hopefully beyond have a high quality of life? It's those things. It's like it's everything that I think is common sense, to be honest with you, but it's harder to put in practice for most people. But everyone knows I should eat well, I should exercise regularly, I should get enough sleep, I should maintain relationships. Like we all know these things. Putting them into practice is a different story. Can we dive into a little bit about biological age versus chronological age, right? Because there's obviously a difference there too. Chronological age is how many years I've been alive. Biological age is how old your body actually behaves. Telomere length is a good indication of biological age. I'm sure there's other ways to do it, but like, you could have two 50-year-olds who are, they have very different levels of strength. Their labs look different. They have different levels of mobility and energy. And a lot of that is influenced by how do you look, right? So what's your body composition? How active are you? What's your nutrition look like? Everything we just mentioned, right? But, I think chronological age is obviously not modifiable. Biological age is. So is there anything you could maybe dive into about the differences between chronological and biological age, and maybe how, anything that we should specifically know about the biological age side of things?
Yeah. Chronological age is just a measure of time, right? Biological age is a measure of where your biology is in relation to your clock.
We can correct me if I'm wrong, but we can sort of calculate this, can't we?
We can estimate it.
Yeah.
It's never perfect because biology is so complicated, but there's a lot of ways that you can estimate your biological age.
How do they do that? Do you know exactly?
I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do it, and all of them have pros and cons. I mean, you can look at, some people use like metabolic panels and skin quality and telomere length, epigenetic markers. Like there's all sorts of different measures of doing it.
Okay.
I think one of the more accurate ways is like your epigenetic markers. Okay. I think those are actually relatively close. I'd have to go look at the studies, but.
And when you say epigenetics, we're talking about things that externally
marks on
influence your genetics.
No, those are like marks on your genome, on your DNA.
From what?
Everything.
Okay.
So
these aren't things that you would are they necessarily things that you inherited, or can they be things that
some of
changed
them
over
are.
time? Okay.
Some of them, a lot of them, you inherit, but they're also changeable.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
examples of epigenetic marks are like methylation of CPG islands in your genome.
Okay.
Histone proteins can be modified with acetylation, methylation, etc. And usually these marks come from environmental exposures. So
right.
A lack of certain vitamins, a lot of vitamins, whether you smoke or not, drinking, environmental toxins, exercise, like all of those things end up actually marking our genome. And so you can use that to assess somebody's biological age.
What's interesting when you say that is, so like, and you can pass that on to your kids, correct? Right. So you could like, your kid could be born with, now they're already at a disadvantage, or maybe that's not the right word, but like they're already at a higher risk for developing something because of the way you lived your life and what happened to your DNA. Is that, maybe that's an oversimplification, but that's essentially the idea, right?
Epigenetic marks are passed down.
Yeah.
One of the most famous studies is, I got to find a picture of it. Oh shoot, it's behind, of course it's behind a paywall. So there is the whole subfield of animal genetics in research is fascinating. So there are entire companies that just breed mice with specific genetic backgrounds for specific study purposes.
Okay.
If you ever get bored, just look up Jackson Labs.
Okay.
They just like breed specific mice for you, which is, it's really wild. But there's a type of mouse, it's called the Agouti mouse, and it has two different phenotypes. Same genetics, so same DNA, but based on epigenetic marks, they can show very different phenotypes. One is fat and yellow, one is lean and brown.
Okay.
And you can manipulate the specific genes that drive those phenotypes based on diet quality.
Wow.
So they did a study with these mice, and they basically gave one of the pregnant mice a bunch of methyl-rich vitamins, and the other one they basically gave the mother none. And one of the sets of offspring was born with the lean brown phenotype, and one was born with the fat yellow phenotype. So these epigenetic factors are definitely important, especially when you talk about aging.
Is genetics one of those fields where the more we learn, we feel like, holy, we don't know shit? Like, is it kind of like that?
Yeah. So I was listening to a really interesting podcast yesterday with Brett Weinstein, and one of the biggest unsolved mysteries of genetics is, so I don't know how much you remember about like high school DNA class that you took, but minimal, for most of our understanding in biology, our genes code for proteins, right? Like primarily. And there's these sections of our genome that codes for these 3-letter sequences called codons. Those make amino acids, those make proteins, etc. And there's large chunks of our DNA that don't code for proteins. Yeah. And so for a long time, I was like, oh, this is just junk DNA.
Junk DNA, yeah.
Like we've just accumulated it. It doesn't do anything.
We know, yeah.
And so we're starting to learn more about these non-coding sections of our DNA, and they're actually not junk. And so one of the ideas that was proposed is, hey, to go back to telomeres, right? The main role of telomeres is to tell your cells about the cellular integrity. And when your telomeres run out, your cells destruct, like they go senescent, right? And they die. But every cell starts with a specific number of telomeres. So basically, when your cell's created during development, it has a counter. It's like, okay, I can divide 36 times before I have to die. And those are these long tandem repeats, right? Your telomeres, I believe, are they TATA? Are telomeres TATA? Yeah, they're just TATATATA, and some are TTAGGG. Anyway, there's like these long repeats that don't really make proteins. And so that how many repeats there are is a variable, right? So this cell has 36, this cell has 42, this cell has 24. So there's this theory that Brett proposed that was maybe a lot of these like non-coding sections of repeated nucleotides are just variables. So it's like, oh, well, your leg bone is going to be, it's going to stop growing when it hits 36 inches. What's the standard femur? It's probably like 24 inches. I'm just making up numbers. Well, maybe this person's born with, a variable of 12 inches or 48 inches. And so there's a lot of our DNA that doesn't code for proteins, but encodes for information.
So are these things that we know for sure, or are these just kind of theories at this point? Okay.
Mostly theories.
Huh. Okay, that's super
I wouldn't even say theories, wild ass guesses.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. And did you, because I think when you were in school, you did some stuff with genetics too, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, we should, I'm gonna write that down too, because we can do a genetics episode too. I find that stuff super interesting. Anyways, kind of back to what we've been talking about. I mean, all of that's obviously relevant, but putting that aside, because obviously you can't. I mean, there's no the practicality piece is that we have to sleep better, we have to exercise, we have to maintain a good body weight, we got to eat well, and all that stuff. But I think we talk about can we slow our aging? You look at these celebrities and like they're all getting this cosmetic stuff done so they can look younger, but that's just cosmetic, right? Like that doesn't actually increase your health span or your lifespan. So let's dive into the kind of the things that we mentioned a little bit more about, the actual actions we can take to slow our aging. Okay, resistance training, and I know you've said this before, it's basically the biggest predictor of independence later in your life, right? Because it preserves your muscle and your bone density. And we've mentioned, I know many times, that if you're older and you break a bone, your chance of dying like within like the next year goes up a lot. So like we know that being able to walk and be functional and not breaking your bones is pretty damn important.
Yeah, I think the other underrated part of maintaining strength as you age is there's a large nervous system component, right? One of the most important things that strength training does, and the reason you get substantially stronger in the first couple weeks or months of you training before you start building muscle mass, is your brain learns to quickly and completely fire your motor neurons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And a large part of like preventing falls, catching yourself when you fall, quick coordination is your ability to rapidly and fully produce force. And so as you age, if you engage in strength training, your ability to like prevent yourself from falling in general is important. And a lot of that's just like reflexes.
Right. I have a question that this just pops into my head, but I think it's relevant. We're talking about cell health and cellular repair. Is there validity to the idea that calorie restriction, at least from time to time, can improve cellular repair abilities, or like intermittent fasting is another one I've heard. Like, is there any truth to these things?
In the most technical sense, yes. In the larger context,
you wouldn't really.
I don't see a situation where fasting ever results in a longer health span.
Okay.
With very rare circumstances.
So just calorie restriction in general is.
I think it's stupid. I mean, as a longevity tactic, unless you are trying, unless you like need to lose a meaningful amount of weight to get to a healthy body weight, I think the idea of you're going to starve yourself to living longer better is just dumb.
No, but I guess my question was more about.
I think it's a dumb idea.
Yeah, no, and I wasn't. That's actually not what I was trying to imply. I guess I was just curious, like if there is actual science that shows calorie restriction can improve cellular repair.
It can, right? Okay. We know that when you have long periods of calorie restriction, you activate autophagy, which is basically like a cellular cleaning system. How much that actually adds to overall lifespan, I don't know. I just don't think we have enough research. And I think the only sense in which it actually would be meaningful is if you're somebody who is otherwise really healthy, engages in all the right behaviors.
Yeah.
You maintain calorie balance at a high output. So you have high output and high calorie intake that's matched. And you occasionally have periods of caloric restriction to like clean your cells, quote unquote. That may be the only situation in which I think it makes sense to actually add to your overall longevity.
Yeah. Yeah. So like a lot of these things are just ancillary like tools that aren't really going to meaningfully change.
It's sort of like, I don't know if you remember this, but back in, it's must have been 20 years ago, there was this idea of, oh, well, if you fast for your training, but you drink 15 grams of BCAAs, you activate muscle protein synthesis, but keep fat oxidation as high as possible. So it's the optimal way to build muscle. And I'm like, or hear me out. You could go into a training session really well fed, be in a meaningful calorie surplus, get enough protein to trigger muscle protein synthesis, and have the calories to build the muscle tissue. I don't know.
Yeah, you were talking about high calorie intake and high output. It made me think of, the basket, because you're obviously big into basketball, but like the kids that you work with, let's say pro athletes.
I mean, they are pro athletes. They get paid now.
Yeah, that's true.
They get paid a lot of money. It's crazy.
How many calories do you think your average sized basketball player burns during a game?
Just during a game? Are they playing 30 plus minutes?
Let's say
probably burning 700 to 1,000.
700. I was going to say 1,000 probably on the high end, right? But on average, these types of athletes also throughout the week probably need to eat a high amount of food, right? Because they got training throughout the week, and so are those kind of the examples you'd be talking about?
We have been conned into this idea that it is normal for humans to consume and burn 1,500 calories a day, and that's maintenance. That is an artifact of modern life. The fact that we think it's so insane that college athletes, I mean, they have a high workload, and they probably burn, these guys are big guys, they probably burn 4,000 to 5,000 calories a day.
Mm-hmm.
But that is not that much higher than what the average adult person was, their calorie expenditure was 80 years ago. Like if you go look at the Minnesota Starvation Study, and I can probably pull up the graph.
That wasn't even that. That was way higher than I thought that they put them on. There was something like 1,700 calories or something. It wasn't.
And that was a 1,500 to 1,600 calorie a day deficit.
Exactly. Yeah.
I've got this somewhere. Actually, maybe on Canva too. Well, okay. This is not the right thing I was looking at because it's not branded Macros Inc., but sue me. No, actually, please don't. I don't want to deal with that. That sounds terrible. Come on, screen. So these people were, these were 150-pound men. So these are not big dudes.
For sure.
Right? Like I'm not, I'm 6 feet tall, but I'm not like, you've seen me. You'd say I'm in shape, but I'm not super muscular, right? I'm not a huge person.
Mm-hmm.
And their maintenance calories was 3,200 calories a day, just because of the life they were living. Like they were doing physical activity most of the day. They were walking around a lot. They were like doing things.
Life was also different back then.
Yeah. And so like high metabolic flux in reality is not, 3,500 calories a day of expenditure living an active life is not crazy.
I totally agree.
If you get up and you have structured exercise for an hour, hour and a half, that's like moderate intensity. You spend, your days working, doing a physically active job. You spend your afternoon gardening, you're doing chores around the house, like that's a 3,500 calorie a day. Like that's normal life.
And that's also like you can easily like that's also not as much food as you. I mean, you could that could be like 2 giant meals. You'd be like, holy crap, that's a lot of food. But that could just be two depending on what the food is, 2 good sized meals that look like it's actually more than it really is. Totally doable for 3,000 to 3,500 calories. I also think, just putting this out there, it would be so easy to just every day, if I really tried, it could probably crush 5 to 6,000 calories just because of how our food is these days. But
I don't think you could,
dude. I mean, there are single meals at Cheesecake Factory that are like 2,500 calories. Just
but you're not going to Cheesecake Factory every night.
I'm just saying I could if I really tried. I think it's doable.
I would challenge you to like eat a normal diet like you normally eat.
Yeah.
And maybe throw in a restaurant once, twice a week. Try to eat 6,000 calories a day.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be something you could naturally do. Like,
try it for a week and let me know how it goes.
I don't want to do. I mean, it sounds miserable, to be honest with you. Do you know how much like you would feel like such crap. Like I think I could do it. Like I would, I'd have to force myself. It wouldn't be comfortable, but I think I could do it.
I tried. There was one period in my life where I tried to put on I tried to get to like 195. Mm-hmm. Dude, I got to like 185 and I was like, nope,
I'm not doing it anymore.
I'm done.
What do you?
This is terrible.
What are you right now? Like you probably just maintain your weight, like
175, right? 180. I don't know. It
depends.
Mostly based on hydration status.
Is there anything else you'd add to the episode? Any other areas you'd want to cover? I think if we were going to recap everything we talked about, I mean, it just comes down to the same things that we have mentioned multiple times, right? So basically, to kind of summarize, if you want to live longer and increase your health span, eat well, maintain a good body weight, and exercise, and sleep well, and have good relationships.
Don't smoke.
Okay, that's fair.
Keep alcohol to a minimum. Don't spend a ton of time flying because of the radiation. This is a real thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Don't be a X-ray tech or an orthopedic surgeon because they have a lot of fluoroscopy and X-ray exposure. Avoid toxic relationships because the stress of bad relationships is bad. Don't fully retire early.
Stay active.
Stay engaged in some mentally meaningful activity.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Eat ice cream as frequently as you can.
Yeah, but it's interesting you mentioned the X-ray exposure. This is a very well-known thing in aviation. Pilots know this. Commercial airline pilots know this. So I think, and they have like very strict schedules where it's very regimented, and you can only have so many flying hours per year to like avoid this sort of thing. But I think even then, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know what the statistics are, but I think there are a pretty high number of pilots that end up with cancer later in their life, right? Or like certain professions do.
I'd have to go look at it. 2 interesting facts related to this. People who spend more time flying, like if you're a professional pilot, you have in 70 years, you have actually experienced more time.
I was just going to say that.
Never flown,
yes.
Which is really interesting.
I was just going to say microseconds, but yes.
Very interesting fact.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is the Earth as a planet is obviously like has all the perfect conditions for life, but there's also something very interesting about Earth and DNA and our environment.
Okay.
If we had a substantially thicker atmosphere, we would not have developed the DNA repair mechanisms that we have because we wouldn't have needed them.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
If we had much less atmosphere, we would have been bombarded with so many X-rays that our DNA would not have lasted long enough to eventually develop DNA repair enzymes. So it's also one of those weird Goldilocks things of like, hey, we can handle some DNA damage and repair it because of the conditions on our planet, which is very interesting. Just a wild fact.
Well, that actually goes back to the beginning of this episode where we talked about why life might actually be so damn rare. Like, look at all the things that have to like go right for intelligent life to actually develop, to really start in the first place, but let alone develop. Like, it's pretty wild. Yeah, it's crazy to think about. But going back to the time thing, though, wouldn't it be wouldn't they have experienced less time? They're also traveling through time faster. You said more time.
Well,
did you mean less time? Because if they're traveling through time faster, even though it's 500 miles an hour, on average, they should have experienced less time.
Yes, that's what I meant.
Yeah. Okay. I was going to say not. Yeah. But so they're technically a little bit younger.
Yeah. So if you had a twin,
right? Yeah.
One's a pilot. One's a deep sea diver and spends all their time.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Do you remember for what the time dilation was on Miller's planet?
Which one was that?
That was Interstellar, the water planet.
Ocean? I know. Yeah. Was that the water planet?
Yeah.
God, I want to say it was like an hour was 7 years or something.
Yeah. Yeah. And remember they get back up to the spaceship and the dude that was waiting for him, he's like, yeah, 7 years has passed. Where the hell you guys been? And he's like, got a beard and everything. You imagine spending 7 years on the spaceship by yourself? You think you'd survive? Like, I'd probably just be like, I'm just going to like end it. I don't want to do this.
I still feel like this is one of those facts about the universe that I get and acknowledge it's true, but I also...
It's hard to visualize.
Yeah.
It's hard to think that it's actually real.
Yeah.
Like that.
You're just like, oh, it's like when people say like space bends, like 3-dimensional space bends, and you're like, okay, that makes sense. But then your little lizard brain over here is like, yeah, but I don't really, I don't know.
Well, because also, I mean, and if you go up, I mean, I don't know what the time dilation is, but like satellites and like the ISS, if you have a clock, I think they're just microseconds off, right? Like a clock on the Earth doesn't sync. If they're not specially synced with the clock up in space, they're going to like drift apart from each other. So like what you're talking about has actually been, it's verifiably true. We've seen, we have evidence of time dilation. It's just a wild thing to think about. Anybody got any questions before we wrap things up? I think we've kind of covered everything. And if anybody doesn't have questions, I could also ask Brad some additional personal questions if he wants to answer them.
You got 8 minutes.
Do I have some like funny cards I could pull out?
You can't think of random questions?
Well, no, so I have this set of cards that asks ridiculously funny questions, but I don't want to dig for them. Okay. Let's see. If you could take up an extreme sport, not get injured, and not have any risk of getting injured, what would it be? And by sport, I mean like it doesn't even necessarily have to be physical. You could include F1 if you wanted to. Is there an extreme sport you'd take up if you were guaranteed that you won't get injured?
That's a good question. If I knew for sure I wouldn't die, skydiving would be sweet. But mostly like I want to do the wingsuit stuff.
Oh, yes, the squirrel suit? Hell yeah. Does this mean you will never skydive?
No, I mean, not at this point, not until the kiddo's fully grown.
Right. Yeah. Right. Good call. Who, in your opinion, is the greatest sports athlete of all time, out of all sports?
How would you define that?
Most dominant, changed the landscape of everything. Had the most influence on the world.
Oh, on the world or on the game itself, or achieved the most with?
Yeah, I know there's a lot of ways to quantify it. I get your point.
I'm going to give you some wild takes here. The greatest athletes. This is going to be a wild take. John Daly.
Okay.
Dennis Rodman.
I could see that.
Jim Thorpe.
Mm-hmm.
Probably top 3. And here's why I say this. John Daly won one of the hardest sporting events with doing everything completely wrong you should do as an athlete. Like, the fact that he was the best in the world at his sport for a short period of time, despite doing everything wrong, tells you like how good of an athlete he actually was at his sport.
Mm-hmm.
Dennis Rodman, who would have 72-hour benders in Las Vegas and then go set an NBA record the next day, is also just, do you know how hard it is to just like get your body ready to play one full basketball game like that, like with everything right? So there's that. And then Jim Thorpe, I think that was his name.
Yeah, you're right. There's an award after him too.
Yeah. He won an Olympic gold medal when he showed up to a track event and didn't have his shoes. Like, dude, we're talking about people who were the best in the world despite like everything going against them. Like, that to me is crazy. Obviously, there's like the Michael Jordans and the like Tom Brady's or whatever. But I'm like, think about the people who won at the highest level despite everything going wrong. And maybe it was self-inflicted, but still.
Here's another question for you. Do you have any interest in visiting sites like Puma Punku or the pyramids or these ancient what the hell happened here sites?
Yes. I think when the kiddo gets old enough, we're going to start doing a lot more stuff like that. I will say one of the coolest things I've done in the last few years is there is a World War II Air Force Museum in Tillamook, Oregon, where it's like the old hangars from World War II, and they still have a bunch of planes and like Zeppelins inside.
Nice. That'd be cool.
So cool.
That would be cool.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
And then we got to go to the Tillamook cheese factory and have ice cream. So it was very good.
So I have an opportunity to go to Stonehenge. I'm trying to think if I should do it or not. I can't tell if my daughter would be into it or she'd get there. She's 11. So would she get there and be like, Dad, these are just giant rocks? Like, would she actually enjoy that? I'm debating if I should go see it. I've always thought that'd be super cool though.
Why wouldn't you go see it?
Because I don't want her to be like, well, this is a wasted day. Like, I'm trying not to be selfish. Like, I want to show her the country, but like, I don't know. I'll have to see. Yeah. But you know what they think Stonehenge was?
A place where giants gathered.
Well, that would be something Jay would believe. Probably astrological, but still, I wish it was something more magical than that. Still be sweet.
Do you want to know what YouTube clip of ours has the most comments by far?
Is it a short or is it an actual?
It's a short. It's so wild.
I don't know. What is it?
It's a clip from when we were talking about younger generations drinking less. It's like all these comments about like, yeah, we don't drink, we just smoke weed now. I'm glad about all the great content we've put out. This is the comments we get.
Maybe that went viral somewhere.
I mean, we have 500 views on it, so I wouldn't call it viral. It's probably viral, because our marketing department put hashtag Gen Z, hashtag brewery in there.
Well, I will say, I think you're probably going to develop fewer health problems if you smoke marijuana than you would if you drink.
To anybody listening to this, do not assume that is correct in any way, shape, or form. This is a PSA. If Dylan is not a professional, medical professional, do not listen to anything he has to say about that.
I'm just saying, show me the number of health problems that have been caused by that versus alcohol. I'm pretty sure you can't develop hepatitis from cannabis. So
you can develop a lot of other things.
Yeah, that's probably true. I don't know. I don't have anything else. Did you have anything else to add?
I have to go to the tech and development meeting next.
Okay. Will you tell Derek hello from the other side?
The other side.
Yes.
All right. Toodaloo.
Okay. I'll play this lovely outro music. Brad, if you need to boogie, you can. Thank you all. I appreciate you guys. And we will be back very, very soon.
Deuces.
Adios, dude. Later.